If you're an AI tech and semiconductor investor, you're definitely super excited after hours. I don't even know how you're going to sleep. I mean, we have Microsoft up over 8%. We have Meta platforms up over 11%. We have NVIDIA up over 2% on some of the great sentiments that we just heard from these two players. Now, I know what most of you guys are saying. Why don't they open up the market already so we can see all these great gains happening? Now, on today's episode, what I want to do is just take a closer look at what's happening in the AI space in general and why this gets me so excited for everything we've been covering in the past few years in this channel. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so like I mentioned, today we did have some pretty interesting earnings that kind of impact the AI market. And as you guys know, this is a channel that focuses on the semiconductor and AI space. So that involves things like data centers and anybody in between from the semiconductor equipment, manufacturers, and the list goes on and on. So Microsoft and Meta both reported earnings. Microsoft, like we mentioned, up 8% and Meta up 11%. Just these two companies on this kind of gains are adding hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to the market tomorrow. Obviously, a lot can happen between now and when the market opens tomorrow, so there could be some volatility. Overall, though, the sentiment and the tailwind that long-term investors should have is very, very bullish. And this sentiment is driving stock prices up on NVIDIA, sitting at $183. That is freaking wild. Is NVIDIA going to hit $5 trillion by the end of the year? It seems the trend is liking it. AMD up about 2.7%, sitting at $184. Amazon reports earnings tomorrow, and the stock is up roughly 3% on the market expecting them to showcase that same type of momentum as well. We also have companies like CoreWeave that deal in the data center space up over 8% after hours. And we have Vertiv, a company that reported earnings this morning and focuses on AI infrastructure solution up 3%. So the first company I want to start off with is Microsoft. And I have this pretty cool slide here to kind of understand what's happening with earnings. Focus as an AI investor analysis. So first, they have over 100 million plus monthly active users on their Copilot apps. They have over 800 million plus monthly active users on their AI feature engagements, and they process over 500 trillion tokens so far, which is a 7 times increase versus a year ago. Now, some form of updates on their infrastructure efficiency. They mentioned that in the past 12 months, they built over 2 gigawatts of new capacity. And more importantly, they continue to optimize their data centers, and they get 90% more tokens for the same GPU via software optimization than a year ago. Now, all this is nice, but why is the AI market excited? This is the thing. The company announced that for quarter one of fiscal year of 2026, which is this next quarter, they're going to have capital expenditure of 30 billion plus. That is wild. Obviously, it's not always a straight line. But if you just put that into perspective on an annual run rate, that's about $120 billion that in theory they can spend in capital for the year. They spent about $80 billion this past year. So that's a huge growth. Now, I don't believe we're going to see that 120, but we are getting to those 100 billion capital expenditure by big tech. Now, it's not for nothing, right? They did mention that their contracted backlog, RPO, was $368 billion, up 37% year over year. And Microsoft mentions that they expect to remain capacity constrained through the first half of fiscal year of 2026, signaling overwhelming demand. So pretty much if they had more AI compute right now, they would be able to grow that clouding market even faster. Now, forward guidance, they gave some amazing numbers. They believe revenue would grow at a double digits. More importantly, Azure, which is their clouding business, is expected to grow 37% year over year. This is a market that's already a $30+ billion business. You're telling me it's going to grow 37% year over year? That is wild. Now, the Microsoft Cloud quarter one gross margins is projected to be a little bit down year over year as they continue to do AI scaling and AI compute growth, but still expected to be 67%, which is pretty impressive. So as an AI investor, as a semiconductor investor, and I obviously talk about it as an NVIDIA investor because they are the market leader here, but Microsoft does have partnerships with AMD to kind of have some the MI300s and maybe the MI350s. They also have partnerships with Marvell to build ASIC solutions in the future. You can, whatever type of AI investor you are, the main topic at hand is cloud and AI growth is still growing at dramatic levels, and compute is still a major bottleneck. So any players that focus in whatever part of the supply chain and building data centers, from the power infrastructure, from the compute infrastructure, from the cooling, can definitely see growth at least for the foreseeable future. Now, they talked a little bit about two interesting things. Their OpenAI partnership. They mentioned that they are still deepening here their partnership with OpenAI. There's a lot of questions about this, but obviously they're only going to say good things there. The second thing is quantum stocks did get out a shout out, and they mentioned that right now they were the world's first operational deployment of a level 2 quantum computer in partnership with Atom Computing, positioning Microsoft at the forefront of next-gen tech. So it was a quick liner, and kind of Microsoft was saying that this is how they stay ahead for these multi-year arcs, decade-year arcs in the future. So good indication there. I'm still not investing in any quantum stocks at the moment. So the next thing I want to take a closer look at is Meta. So Meta had earnings, but before we go anywhere, if you guys are enjoying this information, if you're learning something already just from that past slide, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 75,000 by the end of the year. It truly, truly would mean a lot, and I'm extremely grateful for all the support we are getting in this channel. The second thing, make sure to check out my comments for a free newsletter into the semiconductor and AI space. Be for sure that these topics are going to be covered in the newsletter. I also have a special offer for you at fiscal.ai/Jose. I use it in a lot of my videos. I use it on a daily basis, and it's the greatest platform if you want to invest in the market. Check out fiscal.ai/Jose. All right, so now let's jump back here to Meta. And quarter two, 2025, luckily for us, Meta is on the calendar year, not like Microsoft that is about two quarters ahead compared to the calendar in forms of fiscal year. But the first thing is infrastructure investments was about $17 billion in quarter two of 2025. Now, they did increase the bottom end of their fiscal year capex for 2025. So it was previously $64 billion. They increased it to $66 billion, but that top range is still the same of $72 billion. So at least now we know that the minimum amount of money that they're going to spend on AI is about $66 billion. Now, what's more important is that they believe they're going to see significant growth expected in 2026, anticipating another year of massive investments. So they gave us a number. They mentioned for fiscal year of 2024, at the midpoint, CapEx grew about $30 billion to get to this kind of $68 billion. So it seems last year was about $38 billion, closer to $38 or $40 billion that they spent the CapEx. This year, they got about $68 to $70 billion, right? We see these numbers. They mentioned that for 2026, they believe it would grow around similar rates. So an extra $30 billion. That means Meta Platforms can be another player that is going to be spending about $100 billion in capital expenditure next year. We already got it from Microsoft, right? Microsoft talked about it already. If you kind of just do that 30 times 4, you're already at 120. Even if not every quarter is a $30 billion capital expenditure, I think we're going to get $100 billion plus here with Microsoft. If we add that $30 billion to the numbers that Meta gave us for fiscal year of 2025, we can see fiscal year of 2026 would be $100 billion for them as well. So off the bat, I don't know. That's insane. I have no words to it. 100 billion by all these different companies. Obviously, a lot of it is going to go to NVIDIA. but you also have those other players that can benefit dramatically just because they have such a small market share. Now, in forms of their super intelligence, Meta believes that the AI that surpasses human intelligence in every way is now in sight. And that's why Meta is trying to build this massive team, and that's why they're investing a lot in talent. Now, they also talked about massive computing scaling. So we talked about these in the past, but just a quick update. Prometheus, which is going to be the first 1 gigawatt plus cluster, is online next year. Hyperion, which has a scaling of up to 5 gigawatts, will be coming over the next several years. And Titan clusters, multiple with additional gigawatts of clusters, are in development right now. Now, in forms of AI model trajectory, they mentioned Llama 4.1 and 4.2 are in good progress on current gen models. They are already working on the frontier for the next year, which I'm guessing with all that talent that they have. They also mentioned that their AI systems begin to improve themselves. Slow for now, but undeniable. There's some self-improvement going on there with AI that's a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie. And next, we hear that autonomous agents, Llama 4 agents, are now improving Facebook's algorithm. The company also kind of gave us a business impact, about 5% more conversions on Instagram thanks to AI ad optimization, 3% more conversions on Facebook's on ad optimization. And for user engagement, you already see 6% more time spent on Instagram and 5% more time spent on Facebook. So you can see how they are really using AI to increase that core business, and they're going to continue to invest. Now, right now, obviously, I'm doing these episodes of more of just an AI investor, but if you want any of these for me to go more in depth, and maybe we can look at some of the numbers, feel free to let me know in the comments below. But I think the best thing to always do, especially for all types of investors, is look at that top overview and see what the overall thematic is. And the thematic here is AI market is not slowing down. Now, one thing that was interesting that they mentioned is future plans. They are exploring financial partnerships to co-develop data centers in the future. It seems like they might want to invest more and more in data centers, but they don't want to upfront all the costs just yet. It's going to be interesting to see who partners up with them, but it could be an opportunity for investments in the future. That's actually pretty cool. And maybe if you have any ideas, let us know in the comments below. Now, the final stock that I want to talk about is Vertiv. So Vertiv reported earnings this morning. And what I really want to look here is more just the commentary that the executive chairman mentioned. So he mentioned what we're seeing in the data center industry today goes well beyond the next few years. This is a technological transformation that we believe will drive sustained long-term growth. This is a company that builds infrastructure. For those that are not familiar with Vertiv, let's kind of just go to their website. But first, it's just kind of going to mention a few more things. They did increase their full-year guidance for 2025. They increased sales thanks to AI-related activities. So the demand is there. Vertiv, for those that are not familiar, they provide a lot of the infrastructure, the thermal management, the racks, the critical power, crucial for AI plays. And all these data centers don't get built up right away. Some get built now, some get built up next year, the year after that. So Vertiv has this great visibility. And for them to say something like that, again, it solidifies that AI market that we're going to continue to see this crazy growth. I know I said it I talked about it in today's episode, but it's wild to think both Meta and Microsoft can provide $100 billion of capital expenditure in the near future. That is wild to me. Now, a quick highlight of Vertiv. Net sales were up 35% year over year. Adjusted earnings per share are up 42%. Backlog was up to $8.5 billion at 21% year over year. And quarterly orders were over $3 billion, which was a record high. So they have some great integrations and partnerships with companies like NVIDIA. And this is why they are kind of a great partner there, because NVIDIA kind of shows them what the next GPU is going to be. So then Vertiv can create solutions for those solutions already. Again, if you want me, we see the Americas were up 43% year over year. Asia Pacific up 37% year over year. Europe, Middle East, and Africa up 7% year over year. And like I mentioned, they did increase their guidance dramatically. Now, Vertiv is signaling what all the other players are saying. And now this is not a data center company. This is not a Mac 7, but this is critical for the infrastructure space. And it's telling us that the AI market is still just starting. So again, as a semiconductor investor, I am pretty excited. As an NVIDIA shareholder, as my number one position, I'm super excited. As an AMD shareholder, I'm super excited. Now, while I am super excited, I understand that the market sometimes gets a little bit too ahead for itself. I'm not here. I'm not one to try to sell positions and buy positions later. That's not something that I do. So there is the possibility stock prices could go down in the near future. If they do, I'm not going to regret selling, because what we heard today is the long-term story. The long-term story, and look all the way, turn all the way to your right and look the long-term story for, hopefully you're looking, because if not, this is going to be weird. The long-term story is that the AI market is still going in that direction. And maybe we might have some ups and downs throughout the ways. That's how the market goes. And maybe sometimes it's going to look like the AI story is ending, but I don't think that's going to be the truth. I think those are going to be opportunities that we're going to get in the future. What happens to these stocks in the next month or so, I could care less. I'm looking for that long-term multi-bagger growth that I've already experienced in a lot of these companies. So take care. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. And let me know in the comments if you actually looked up and looked to the right and saw that AI star just glowing and glowing and glowing. Peace out.